Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, we will be starting with the Flask and how we can learn it by applications. So in this series, this will be the introduction video for Flask. So in this video, we will not talk about an application. Instead, we will just look into the basic part of Flask and how we can build a basic web application using Flask. So if you are new to Flask, if you are new to Python, it might be your first web application that you are creating using Flask. So thinking that you are a beginner, so I will start by very basics and I will discuss each and every step throughout the process. So for that, I have created a presentation. Throughout the presentation, I will explain each and every step, and finally we will dive deep into the code. So first of all, I have already opened my favorite editor, code editor. You can open your own code editor. I think most of the people use Visual Code, but if you are not using Visual Code, it is not a problem, because in this video and in the whole series, I will be not using any kind of extension that is particularly available in VS Code. So after opening your favorite code editor, what you need to do, you need to create a file called app.py. Make sure that the name is app.py, because as if you are beginner, you will know that this name will be used for a command. We'll talk about it later. But after you create the first Python file, which is app.py, we will talk about the basic things. So to create your first web application with Flask, I just need to first tell you what is Flask. Flask is a lightweight library that is available in Python, and it is used to create lightweight web applications in Python. It is very much beginner friendly and it is very much easy to learn. So that's why most of the people you might see, if they are not familiar with lots of Python or web applications, they first start with Flask because it makes the whole process much easier. And most of the small applications, web applications, are created using Flask because the Flask is a very lightweight application or library. Now, coming back to how we can first create Flask application, our first web application, I will I have already written the whole code here. I will tell you step by step what we are doing here. First, we are importing Flask class from Flask library. The first line is just doing that. The Flask library, the Flask class, is the most important thing throughout the web application, because it is used to create an instance which will work as the server. In Python term, we are calling it WSGI application, web server gateway interface. It is nothing special, although the name is a little bit complicated. It is just, you can say that it is just an application which works as a server for our client. So if there is a client, our server will this whole application will work as a server which will uh, give the important information or all the files that are needed for our client to retrieve the data from the server. So this is how we start creating the server. First, we import the Flask class. Next, we create our application by using this line. In this line, what you can see is that we are instantiating our Flask class. The instance is named as app, which is created from the Flask class, and in the Flask class, what we are passing the name of the current file. Make sure that you write this name Dinder class, although this I will talk about later. But as of now, you can see that this name is just telling Flask where to look for the resources. Because see, when we are creating a server, obviously we will be sending some files to the client. It could be HTML file, CSS file, it could be some other database related uh, data as well. So to where to retrieve those data from, that's what this whole thing is doing. Okay, by telling Flask where the current file is located, it is essentially saying to Flask that where to look for the future resources if we have any. In the next step, what we are doing, we are using a route decorator. In the route decorator, what we are doing, the route decorator essentially is binding a function, Python function, with an URL. So here in the root, you can see there is a URL. In short, this URL is the home directory. And whenever user goes to this directory or this URL, types the URL in his web browser, what function will be called? Hello function will be called. Inside the hello function, we have written a message. Usually the messages are by default HTML content. So that's why inside the code you can see an HTML element, h1 tag. Inside the h1 tag, we have the content of hello. So this is essentially what we will be doing throughout the whole application creation, web application creation. So let's come back to our code editor and let's start writing the code. So first, as you can see, we will import the Flask class. It is the most important part. Then Flask. Then we will create the app. To create the app, we will first code the Flask class, and inside the Flask class, we will provide the name of the application or name of the file that we are creating the application from, so that Flask will know where to look for the resources. After that, we will create a route. The route is the home address, the base address that any user, whenever he enters, he will go into this address first. And we are triggering if the URL, if home address URL is used by from the user side, then which function we will call? We call hello function. Inside the hello function, what we are doing, we are returning an HTML element, which is the base element, and inside this base element we have the content hello. So this is all the code that you need to write. Now as you can see there, in the Flask class, there is an error or an warning because I have to select the interpreter properly. Now you can choose any kind of interpreter. Because I have already installed a virtual environment, I will choose that environment first. And here, this file. Okay, so this is our whole code. One thing I just told you, that there was a warning that was coming from the Python interpreter in VS Code. The whole and sole reason is it could not find the exact Flask library. And the reason is, although I have installed the virtual environment, if by the way, if you are not yet aware about what is virtual environment and how to install Flask inside it, you can refer to my previous video. But because I have already installed Flask, so obviously it is not going to give us any error. But because the Python interpreter could not find the exact Flask library in the current main system's Python library, that's why it was giving us error. So no need to think too much about it. Just what you need to do, you just need to create a virtual environment inside a folder, and inside that folder only you need to write the code. So automatically, whenever you are writing the code, that code will use the Flask library, which was already installed in the virtual environment. So after that, when I am the whole code is completed, this is all about the code. Now I just need to open the terminal. In VS Code, you can open it by pressing Control and tilde sign, and then you need to open the virtual environment, or you can use the virtual environment. The reason is, in the virtual environment only we have the Flask library. So I will go to this, and this is also something I discussed in the previous video. So in case you are not, if you don't know what we are doing, you can go back to the video and check out in the video. So now I have the installed version of Flask in the virtual environment, and now I can use Flask. So to run any kind of web application, what kind of command you need to give in the command prompt or PowerShell? You first need to write Flask, then this app. It says that this is an application. Then you need to write the name of the file which has the Flask code inside it, and then you need to write run. This much is enough to run the Flask application. Now you can see there is an error, and by the way, in Flask you don't know what kind of error it is giving, because it just says this. But as I can understand, it is showing the error because of this name, and we should change the name of app to hello. The reason I am doing this is because you can see most probably it is conflicting with the name app. So when I change the name and make it hello, let's see. The reason I am getting this error is because it could not find the file hello. And the whole and sole reason is currently I am inside Python folder, right? And inside Python folder I don't have any file hello. I have the hello file inside Flask subdirectory. So I need to go to subdirectory of Flask by using cd Flask. Now I am currently inside the Flask subdirectory and I can now use this, and you can see it is running. And it is running on which server or which link? This is the link given. If you want to go to the link, you can just press Control and click. It will open the link. This is the link, and when you open the link you can see hello written over it. The reason it is giving a hello header is because we have created the h1 header, and that's the HTML element which was returned. Okay, so any element if you return here, it will be returned to the to the web application, and that content will be rendered in the application. So that's it for the video. I will easily summarize. I will summarize the whole video for you, what we have seen. First of all, I told you about what is Flask and why we use Flask. Then I told you each and every step that is needed to write your first Flask application. Then I also showed you how to run the Flask application. Throughout the process, I have also encountered an error which you have seen. So in case you are also facing any kind of error in the future, make sure that whatever directory you have written the Flask application, that directory you are inside. Otherwise, it will give the same kind of error in your case as well. And the exact command that you need to do or need to write to run a Flask application. By the way, one more thing I want to show you is that in case this is the file, there is another way you can run your Flask application. Let me cancel the current Flask application by pressing Ctrl C. Now what I will do, I will write if name is main. What this line is doing, it is simply saying to Python that whenever this file is run, that then only run the code that is inside this if condition. Okay, and the code I am going to write is app.run. This is a much easier way, because if you do this, you don't need to write this whole command. Let me complete the whole code. What I am doing is I'm setting the debug mode to true. Setting the debug mode true will what it will do. In simple words, whenever you are debugging your code in the backend, whenever you are opening any web application where you are checking what kind of results you are getting, it will auto update it. Okay, so it supports debugging, but in case you do not set the debug mode to true, by default it is by default false, which you can see here. Default debug mode is off. If it is off, then even if you change anything in the code, it will not be reflected in the web application. Okay, so that's what debug is doing. And the next another argument is port. In the port number you can use any kind of port number, because you can see that here 500 was the port number that was used, and by the way it is the by default value. If there is no application running in this port, then it will by default choose this number. But if you are using a port argument, then you can choose any other port number like 3000 as well. And when this code is complete, let me show you how we can run this code. To run this code, instead of writing this whole Flask dash dash app, what you can do, you can just write Python and the file name. Okay, this is enough to run the whole code. And when I click this and click enter, you can see this is the Flask application that is running, and the port number you can see it is 3000, because I have mentioned it that the port number that I want to use is 3000. And by the way, in case that port number is being used by some other application, then it will either try to find some other port number, or if you are hard coding it, it will give you an error, because some other application is already running in that port number, and it is not possible for Flask to run another application on the same port number. Okay, so that's all for this video. If you have learned something new, if you if this video is helping you in learning something, then please subscribe the channel, because I'll be uploading lots of more videos regarding this whole topic, and you'll be enjoying the whole process, because I'll be creating lots of applications, real world applications using Flask. If you like this video, please click on the like button, and in case you want to query something, in case you want to ask something, you can put that in the comment section as well. Thank you, thank you so much, and have a nice day ahead.